So there's been a little bit going on, but we saw Josh Simmons yeet Tyreek Smith halfway across the field in a drill. He has also done some snatch trap stuff where you've seen guys around the feet of Mahomes. I understand maybe to an extent in that 1v1 he was frustrated. Maybe you wouldn't see him do something like that in a game. But Mitch, I know you had some thoughts on that. I would love to kind of hear your insight, just because as a fan, I'm like, yo, that was sick. He just yeeted that guy. But obviously, that's probably not the best thing to do in a game. And I know you were kind of sharing your thoughts as to why over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something he's going to do in a game. It's not something that really any offensive lineman does or should do. That was also coming off of, I think, a few scuffles. It might have been that last day in the 6-day string of, 5 padded practices and your first true week in training camp. So it's like, I get it. I understand the frustrations. I didn't see anything from any of the videos that 57 was the guy involved on defense. I saw, that Felix was the guy that Kingsley was going after.
Kingsley, yeah.
And I will say, from what I saw, absolutely Kingsley's fault, not FAU's fault at all. FAU bowled Kingsley back. He kind of pulled up at the end to make sure Mahomes was protected. And then Coach Heck teaches a violent shove at the end of every play. And Kingsley gave Felix a violent shove up in the head and neck area. And he's probably like, dude, what the hell? I just pulled up to not like hurt the quarterback, and you're going to go ahead and shove me after I beat you. And that's what happened there. So, yeah, that specific rep of Josh throwing a guy, like, I don't get any value from that. I don't see any real value from it. Like, yeah, maybe it's great that he can like do that and has the upper body strength. I've described it, the way the Chiefs do one-on-ones, they put a towel down on the ground. It's at 5.5 yards. Most quarterbacks start at 5.5 yards and then take a step or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 back from that point. And most other teams, when they do one-on-one, they have a guy catching a snap and or faking catching a snap and then taking a little bit of a drop and being a quarterback in the pocket. The Chiefs have always done it a little bit shallower. Coach Heck just likes guys to kind of start the engagement earlier. He doesn't want oversetting. He wants guys to be firm. And so having that quarterback in a much shallower, or the landmark at a much shallower spot, kind of forces the offensive tackles especially to not overset in that drill, because in a game, if the guy kind of goes inside and he's at 5.5 yards and I can wall him off, that's probably a win. Pat just slides in the pocket, or he can, kind of stay in there comfortably. In that one-on-one pass rush drill, that would technically be a loss if the guy can get to the towel. So in that particular rep, he's behind the towel when he gets thrown, but it's like also at 7.5, 8 yards, which is the standard depth of quarterbacks in every single pocket, except if you're Joe Flacco and you take an 11-step drop every single time. So yeah, that would have been right into Pat's knee, and he would probably be having another ACL injury and then surgery. So that's just a frustration thing. That's not like the technique. The actual snatch trap is the technique that Josh does a decent amount against Karlaftis. You see it against some other guys. I've talked about that. It's not a bad technique. It is a good technique if used properly, if used in the right way. My thing is, you kind of have to give up some ground to get the guy down. There are cases where you can stonewall him or do it quick enough where you don't really have to back up at all. He just kind of falls straight down. Those are rare. Those are more difficult. Josh is still a guy, even if he's not a traditional puncher, he will kind of get his hands on, the shoulders or around, the upper part of the guy's pads. And that takes a little bit of time, and then you got to snatch them and try to throw them on the ground. That all takes time. He's probably pushing on you a little bit. You're backing up. For the most part, again, you're giving a little ground. If you don't do it perfect, he's kind of just like ducked his head and he's still driving forward, could push you back into the quarterback. It just gets a little tight to the quarterback. So when is that technique valid? When is it great? Like if a guy is running at you and he's trying to really long arm you more than bull rush you, but either one, if he's just like his head's really low, you can see it coming from a mile away. Like, yeah, you just dump him immediately. He falls down. Great technique. You're nowhere near the quarterback. It's also great if you're a very wide setter or you take wide splits. Deion Dawkins with Buffalo takes the widest split from any tackle in the league. He also is like right up on the line of scrimmage, which is kind of interesting. But Dawkins is a big like snatch trap or chop guy. Well, he creates a lot of width in his initial alignment, and then he also tends to set out a little bit more. And he's also like, we'll say conservatively 330 pounds. So if a guy is pushing on him, he's got just a little more mass to him than a Josh Simmons does. regardless of strength and explosiveness and all that stuff, he just has literal mass that Josh doesn't have. A guy like Tyron Smith, is a Hall of Famer. I went to the O-line masterminds thing in Dallas this year. They were showing some Tyron Smith clips. I was like, we do not teach Tyron Smith. We can watch, we can appreciate. But Tyron was built in a lab, 6'6", literally like 36 and a half inch arms, freakish. So he could use both hands, punch, and still have his hands on you as the defensive end is long arming and like turning his shoulder and extending. And so he would lock a guy up and then just like snatch him straight to the ground. And he would always be kind of squared up really to, line of scrimmage, but also not really giving up any depth to the quarterback. He would start the engagement, be in total control, snatch straight to the ground. So those are the cases where it's a great technique when the defensive lineman is just so on his, over his toes that you can get him down immediately. When you create a lot of width, whether it's with alignment, whether it's with your pass set, when you have the engagement locked up, he's extended and you're just like, screw you, I'm going to put you in the ground. Boom. Just using it for like normal pass sets when, you're setting maybe a little more vertical than horizontal, later in the rush, once you've already given up, a little bit of pressure on a bull rush or something like that at the top of the arc. I've seen a few of those clips where the guy's already doing the arc and he's already maybe, gonna lose his feet. That's where it gets muddy. That's where it gets close to the quarterback's legs. And it's dangerous, regardless of what your quarterback's health is. But obviously with Pat coming off the injury, it's even more dangerous and more worrisome. And that's the last thing he's going to want to feel. Like we've also seen with him, he has a freakish ability to feel things on the football field, whether that's space downfield, whether that's offensive line, space in the pocket, all that stuff. Is that the thing that he wants to feel? A guy getting snatch trapped, right off his left side? Probably not. Again, if it's wide enough away, if he doesn't feel it, that's great. But once it gets close, that's when bad things start to happen. So yeah, all those things, it's again, not a bad technique. I wouldn't tell Josh to like not use it or to take it out of his repertoire, but I have other techniques I prefer. And the cool thing with going to practice is watching him, getting to talk to him, trying to figure out what he's thinking and, what he's seeing out there. And so he's a fun guy to watch and he's, going to keep ascending.
This is why I love having a former player on here, because it's just what Mitch just said is proof there is so much to this game. There's so many layers to the game of football that the average fan, and I'm lumping myself in that category, it's hard to grasp all that goes into the game, all that goes into the prep. And insane.
Well, O-line in particular, I feel like is its own world. I mean, every position group is, but
right.
I feel like O-line kind of has intricacies that other positions don't. And like receiver DB, I mean, they're way more technical than I think people give them credit for, and the hand fighting. Like we saw the Steve Smith clip with Thornton and talking about the different ways he releases. Like that stuff's kind of cool, but also there's an element of like, I could probably figure that out, or I understand what they're trying to do. With O-line stuff, like unless you've kind of been around it or been in the world or kind of heard the way guys think, it's something that a lot of fans I think don't have the appreciation for. That we have to stop the guy in front of us. You just figure we're big and fat and slow and we'll get in the way. But for the most part, it's extremely technical, and the defensive line has really spurred that on. Those guys have gotten so good at their job.
Good.
Most teams have at least the front four, if not, a few guys off the bench who are quality pass rushers, and they're not just quick, they're not just strong, they're skilled, they know how to use their hands. So as they have gotten better and more athletic and more freakish, and the league is passing more, we've had to, counter that, and they might be a little bit ahead of us these days. But yeah, it's a very fun, nuanced, skilled position, and I think a lot more goes on than the average person realizes.
I guess the question for me, Mitch, as it relates to Josh,